Hello. Welcome back. It's been a couple weeks, but I am happy to be back. Well, let me get the comments going. I'm a little bit late, but follow me on IG. We have it at the bottom. That's a good place to I feel like I post kind of everything I'm doing on my story, and make sure you're following me on YouTube. Hello, the best lawyer on Twitch. Are there other lawyers on Twitch? Hi, guys. Okay, I'm starting to get all the comments coming in now. I wonder if during the replays, can you guys see the comments? Because I was thinking that the other day. I was like, I know sometimes we put the comments up on the screen, but we don't always do that. Hello. Not many, but yeah. Okay, I see. Well, I'm seeing a lot of new names. I feel like there are names that always tune in, but today I have I feel like a controversial topic, and I filmed a YouTube video on it. It's not up yet. It still needs to be edited and go up. But today I want to talk about, I know I did a stream on this a long time ago, like one of the first streams I did on porn and porn addiction, and kind of going through the research on it, kind of the positive effects, negative effects. But for this specific YouTube video, I just focus on kind of porn addiction and the idea of porn addiction. Can you actually be addicted to porn? How widespread is this problem? Is it really like destroying young men, and all the kind of rhetoric that we're seeing, which I feel like was always popular by like religious and conservative groups, but I feel like it's kind of bleeding into the, I guess, manosphere is what people are calling it, like the online male dominated world. Someone said, yes, that's me. What's you? I'm not even going to say that. Okay, I actually want to know your guys' opinion, because obviously I'm not a guy and I don't suffer from any type of porn addiction. But so I did a video. If you guys haven't seen my YouTube video, I did a YouTube video like maybe a few weeks ago on morality and sex work, and kind of just trying to break down, why do people think that like having an OnlyFans or sex work is immoral? And I did get some feedback to that video, like, well, it's because you're contributing to porn, and porn is destroying young men's lives and men are addicted to it. And if you're like in this bubble, or you're in this like feedback loop of these men that are like, you know what I'm talking about, like the Andrew Tate fans, like the tater tots, they only go off of their experience and their anecdotal experience and the experience of other men in this little group. And you would think like whatever is true about them is true about greater society and porn in general. And when you actually look at the data and the research, like it doesn't align with their perception, doesn't align with reality. And I mean, I'm an OnlyFans girl, so I'm obviously not going to have a predisposition to be anti-porn. And I think that there are definitely negative effect or potential negative impacts that are associated with pornography. But I also think that, one, it's not going anywhere, so we got to figure that out. And then also to actually look at real data and look at what's actually happening, instead of going off the experience of disenfranchised, disillusioned men. So started doing a bunch of research on it, like in-depth research on the idea of porn addiction. And number one, porn addiction it's not an addiction. It's not recognized by the medical community at all. It's not recognized by the DSM-5, which is the manual on mental disorders. They do recognize drug addiction, alcoholism, gambling. They recognize all those things as being real addictions, but not porn. It's not also recognized by the APA, which is the American Psychological Association. Oh, you guys are going in the comments. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to get through this, and then I'm going to go through all your comments. Now, it is the medical, I guess, community is more open to considering it to be a compulsion. And I think the World Health Organization does have something called like sexual compulsion, something. What is it called? I actually wrote it down when I was doing research for that video. Give me a second. It is called it's literally like the most simple name. I don't know why I'm not getting it. But Yes, it is called compulsive sexual behavior disorder. And this embodies like a number of behaviors, which is what they're trying to mostly categorize it, like having a ton of kind of like sex addiction. If you've ever heard of sex addiction, this is kind of what it's talking about, like having a lot of partners, having a lot of casual partners, like getting a lot, paying for sex in the form of like in-person prostitution a lot of the time, having it negatively impact your life. And this makes sense to me because I feel like a lot of people can develop compulsions. You can develop a compulsion to anything. And especially if you're using your compulsion to cope with underlying issues like anxiety, depression, loneliness, etc., that is going to, this can easily be the compulsion, I guess, of your choice. And a 2013 study showed that men who have trouble resisting the lure of porn websites might simply have dispositions that make them more vulnerable to compulsive problems in general. So that definitely makes sense. So having a compulsion is far more realistic to me than having like an addiction. And the reason that these that it's not considered an addiction is not because of the matrix. Okay, it's not I don't need the tater tots being like, oh, they just, the scientific community just wants to bring us down. No, it's because of neurochemistry. And while they do, there are studies that do show that obviously watching porn activates the reward centers of your brain, that alone is not enough to make something an addiction. Plenty of things activate the reward centers of your brain: social media, fast food, etc. These things are addictive in the sense that you get a dopamine rush when you like, you know, eat something or you watch porn, etc. But that doesn't mean that it's an addiction in the same way that like heroin is. And literally, I was getting comments on that video that was like, you don't understand, porn is like a heroin addiction and you're like, you know, whatever. And I was like, where are people getting this? And there are a lot of people that think that, you know, I don't know a lot, but there are people definitely in certain online groups that really resonate with that message. And even that, so there's studies, for instance, there's a study that compared, they looked at the brain activity of somebody who self-identifies as having an issue with porn and how their brain looked when they were viewing pornographic images, and a drug addict when they were shown like drugs, the drug they were addicted to, and they saw like a similar spike in brain activity. A larger study later in 2015 was done, and they actually showed the opposite. They showed that actually that wasn't happening. They didn't get the spike in their brain like addicts do, and actually there was a decrease. So the evidence on this is super inconclusive, but there's nothing close. There's not evidence close to, for us to be able to conclude that this is an addiction like gambling, drugs, alcohol, etc. So I think that's just very misleading. And the problem is, and there are all these people that step in to like help you with your porn addiction. It's like conversion therapy, pseudoscientific. It's not based in anything real. A lot of times these people are trying to push moral agendas onto you, or they're trying to just take your money. So if you are somebody that feels like you do have an issue with porn, be very careful about what kind of treatments you I guess, like, you know, what kind of treatment you're open to, because you want to make sure that it's actually going to help you and it's not just preying on you. Now, this doesn't mean that people don't suffer from porn. What they call it is problematic porn use. So not porn addiction. That is not correct terminology because it's not an addiction. Problematic porn use. And even here, and the only way we really know about this is through self-reporting. So basically, if you think you suffer from problematic porn usage, you probably do, or you fall into this category. And really interestingly, there are certain things that make you far more likely, researchers have found, to suffer from this. And first of all, the amount of men that suffer from it, the statistics can range, but I mean, I've seen like average, usually like 4%. Highest I've seen like 4 to 10%. Highest I've seen is like 18% on one website of men who, or one study found that men who self-identify as having a problem with porn. So the vast majority of men do not feel like they have an issue with watching porn. The vast majority. So it's not even like, and so when this community is acting like this is all these men are struggling and like they're just at the whims of all these women just showcasing and making them lust and all, it's not happening. It's actually a very small minority of men. Now, this is not to say that these men's experiences aren't valid, or if you feel like you have an issue that you don't really have an issue. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying people need to be careful with using their personal experience and their personal issues with something and then trying to use that to make broad generalizations about society and going on a rampage against an industry. Specifically, a lot of times it's aimed at women like me or women who make porn, and it's like their fault. And some of the things that do make it more likely that you would suffer from this is number one, we talked about having a predisposition to compulsive behavior. Number two is if you have underlying mental health issues, anxiety, depression. There's been a lot of research that shows that that is linked to a higher likelihood of suffering from problematic porn use. And then interestingly, and me and Hazard Stint were talking about this the other day, I think he's in this chat. I'm trying to ignore the chat so I can get through this, is something called moral incongruence. And basically that means that if you view porn negatively, or that you have a moral opposition to porn, you are far more likely to think you have a problem with porn. I mean, I think it's pretty common sense. And especially when you feel like you have a hard time stopping. And I think this is definitely something else that people fall into this trap of being like, oh, if I can't stop doing something, that means I'm addicted to it, right? Even though, like, I mean, how often do we fail at our diets or, you know, whatever kind of change we're trying to make? Just because you want to get off social media and you're having a hard time, or you want to stop eating junk food and you're having a hard time, that doesn't mean that you're now addicted to it, right? That's not addiction. The criteria that something needs to meet to be considered an addiction is far more rigid. And I think that we are kind of down, like, and we're doing this with a lot of things. Like I see online, especially with TikTok, like mental health disorders, like you just turn on TikTok and all of a sudden it's like, can you not focus? Oh, you have ADHD. It's like, no, they give you symptoms that like everybody has. And they're like, oh, you have ADHD, or your ex was a narcissist. Here's how you can identify who's a narcissist. And everyone's like, do you know how rare it is to actually be a narcissist? Do you know how rare it is to actually have borderline personality disorder? But, you know, if you're just looking online, you're like, oh, yeah, I have an addiction. I have bipolar disorder. I have this, I have that. So that was kind of like a tangent, but be careful about self-diagnosing. And we do need to use proper terminology, in my opinion, because addiction is addiction. And if we start, you know, spreading the word addiction out to anything that spikes our dopamine levels, I think that is downplaying what addiction really is. Nevertheless, there was a study that I talked about in the YouTube video that I'm going to kind of read here. So there's a study that where it was concluded that self-reports of sex or porn addiction may largely stem from the cognitive dissonance that individuals experience when their porn viewing and masturbation habits conflict with their moral and religious beliefs. To test this hypothesis, they conducted a large-scale study of more than 3,600 individuals with samples drawn from both college students and the general population. Results showed frequency of pornography use in itself didn't correlate with the self-perception of it being problematic. That only occurred when the individual also morally disapproved of pornography and like was highly religious. In other words, those with liberal moral views didn't see their porn use as problematic, even when they viewed it quite often. So this study showed that problematic porn use isn't correlated with how much porn you're watching. Two people could be watching the same amount of porn, or one person could be watching way more porn than this person, but this person doesn't have an issue with porn. This person thinks it's wrong. They're going to hell. They're a simp. They're whatever. They're going to think they have a problem, and this person's going to be like, oh, I'm fine. So I think that's really telling, right? So basically there's what's her name? Nicole Prouse, who's a neuroscientist who researches sexual psychophysiology and is a practicing psychologist. She said, if you think you're struggling with pornography, it's most likely you are actually struggling with a conflict of your own personal values around your sexual behaviors, not really the porn itself. Again, I don't think this applies to everybody. We talked about some other things like being a compulsive person, anxiety, depression, loneliness. I think these are all things that put you at risk of having an issue with porn, which is why I think we're really seeing this in this community, right? People are like, oh my God, incels are having an issue with porn. Of course they are, right? But the problem is this community then makes bold statements about porn and how porn is so terrible and it's destroying everyone's life. No, it's you have an issue with it. And this is not to say that your issue isn't valid, but I feel like we do need to start fighting back against this rhetoric, because it's just not it's not based in anything. It's not based on real data. And again, I think there is something about sex that just makes people, especially in America, compared to like Europe, whatever, lose their minds, right? And we've talked about this before, but it's like most people who have an issue with alcohol, right? Some people can consume, majority of people can consume alcohol in a way that's not destructive to their lives. But some people can't. And those people may have an issue where they're alcoholics and they refrain from alcohol, but they're not sitting online like alcohol is destroying our life. We need to, the young men in this world or the young people in this world need to get away. We need to ban alcohol. Fuck you for selling alcohol. It's just something about sex. And I think, again, this community does have issues with sex and women and whatever, but they're using that and they're using the negative experience they have with porn and the negative impact on their lives, and they're spreading it and pretending like it's everybody and that we need to do something about it. First of all, we can't get rid of porn. That would require an unprecedented level of censorship, which would not even work. I mean, the countries where porn is banned, like in the Middle East, have the highest, they view porn the most. This has been shown multiple times. And I can even say from my anecdotal experience, so there's actual studies confirming this, but I have a lot of fans from the Middle East where like OnlyFans is banned, and these motherfuckers are like straight into OnlyFans. I mean, I've said this before. Anytime you have a problem with something or an unhealthy relationship with something natural, whether it's food, sex, etc., it's just going to manifest itself in unhealthy ways, and it's just going to magnify the problem. So one, we can't get rid of it. And two, there's no reason why we should. There are other ways that these people can cope. We don't take away alcohol because some people are alcoholics, in my opinion. I'm a very like libertarian person. So maybe there are some people who are like, no, we should take away anything that anyone, we should take away gambling, we should take away anything that can possibly be addictive. Again, this is not to say that if you like, and people talk about this, there's the no fap November, whatever, no nut November, I don't know, but people are like, oh, my focus increased when I stopped watching porn and masturbating all the time. Of course, if you stop playing video games, if you stop being on social media, if you stop eating junk food, if you stop doing these things, especially if you're doing them in excess, because in excess is when it becomes a problem. If you're doing any of these things in excess and then you stop, you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm more focused. I'm more focused on my goals now. Yes, of course, but that doesn't mean that there's something inherently necessarily terrible about video games or terrible about social media. These are things that, yes, it can have negative impacts. We do need to be cognizant of that, especially on young children. But again, it's not that you unlocked something tremendous because you stopped watching porn or you have a problem. You're struggling to stop watching porn and now you're so addicted and you're stuck in the matrix is out to get you. Okay, I'm going to start getting to these comments, but I'm going to scroll way up. So I'm going to be a little behind. Oh, I'm glad you guys are so, okay. So I'm sorry to my moderator. I am all the way up and I am at Puerto Rican Pa 22. I feel like the problem with that way is that they can't fathom that people see things in a different way. It's incredible how narrow-minded they've become. People are in this feedback loop, especially this demographic in general. And this demographic spends a lot of time online because they don't have healthy lives. So they are literally the stereotype of people who hide in their room and they spend a lot of time online because they don't have friends and community and whatever, which is really sad. And we should work together and we should find out ways and brainstorm ways to get them to that. I was just talking to Hazard Stint the other day about there are so many excellent males that are, or excellent males, that's a weird word to talk, but there are so many great or good men that are actually talking about manhood and how we can help young men. Richard Reeves is a good example. And they're not sitting there showing off their 200 Bugattis and like trafficking people down here and like telling you guys that you should pay $50 a month to join Hustlers University and that watching porn makes you a beta male. And then you're like, well, I can't stop watching porn. These women are like terrible. You know, it can really fall into a dangerous feedback loop, which I think is what's happening. I'm addicted to your content in a positive way. Thank you. And I did a video on my YouTube 5 types of common OnlyFans subscribers, and not everybody falls into that. And I was thinking about that the other day. Like Hazard Stint, for instance, he's like a really good friend of mine. He started out like, I mean, he still is an OnlyFans subscriber. And some people are just there to connect, and some people are there to just make meaningful connections and to, like, you know, get more insight on this stuff and enjoy. Like Hazerson's like, yeah, he enjoys watching my videos and we also have a friendship. Like it's really not that complicated. But anyways, in that video, I talk about how like there are like the types of OnlyFans subscribers I get, and you would be so surprised with how many, like I have yet to see somebody who rages against OnlyFans, rages against porn, whatever, being a well-rounded, healthy human being, an alpha male. But you would be surprised how many alpha, successful, well-rounded people, intelligent, whatever, subscribe to OnlyFans and consume porn in a healthy way. And I know this because they're not people, and I do talk about in that video how there is some people that are like this, but they're not people like I'll send them something and they won't have even logged in a few days. You know, they're not people that are obsessed. They're living their own lives. Hey, sorry, I had a meeting. I did this, I did that, whatever. Or I was off on whatever. And they are just completely normal day-to-day people. But that's not what these male gurus are telling you. And they're not getting you laid. And that's kind of just my big thing. I'm like, they're not helping you in any way. And I mean, this is another tangent, but it's almost really interesting to me to see how these men who don't have a positive role model, they start idolizing these men, and like almost like it's like weird. It's like they're king, and it's so actually beta behavior and they don't see it. There's like striving to be this thing, and it doesn't. And the things that, you know, somebody like Andrew Tate is telling you, like, oh, you can't watch porn, whatever, you're still part of that. And he's going to profit off of you maintaining that status of being below whatever the normal good male is, high status male is. And it's sad because, and people are like, oh, why do you talk about it so much? And with everything that's been going on, I'm like, this is why I talk about it, because look at what's happening in schools. Teachers, elementary school teachers of 11-year-old boys are talking about how they don't know how to get this. The young 11-year-old boys are so obsessed with him, and they don't know what to do and how to teach these boys any differently. They're like, how do we get this Andrew Tate stuff out of these young boys' heads? And I'm like, this is why we do need to talk about it. This is why it's not something we can just ignore, in my opinion. Okay. Anyways, I got to get through these. Oh, I don't want to make clicking noises because you guys have rightfully told me that it can be very annoying. So yeah, there we go. Okay. I think porn addiction is a real thing, and dudes who struggle with it would rather put the blame on someone else than admit they have a problem and get help. So yeah, again, porn addiction isn't a real thing. You can definitely suffer from problematic porn use, just like you can suffer from, you know, whatever else, video games. You can have any type of compulsion that will, that can be a detriment to your life. And yeah, it's not everybody else's fault but your own. Take some accountability. Porn in itself doesn't destroy morals or lives, but like all things, taking it too far and allowing it to consume your life is a negative. People can allow anything to consume themselves. Like, yep, I agree. And there are people who are like, no, because it's just like, it's too different and you can't separate reality from fiction and it just messes with your mind. Every piece of art, that's the whole point of it. When you're watching a movie, you're supposed to connect with the characters. You're supposed to get super into the movie. You're supposed to cry. You're like in a sad movie or whatever. That's what art is. That's what media is. So, you know, it's not something unique to porn that people are watching porn and they're like, I can't tell this is a fantasy, you know? Sex education is important. You know, I don't want people to think sex is the way that it is in porn, but I also don't want people to think love is the way that it is in Disney movies, right? There's a bunch of inaccurate portrayals of a multitude of things in our media, in books, in porn, etc. One problem is that it can become, sorry, I'm so behind on the time. I'm going to try to go faster. One problem is that it can become addictive and it's hard to break an addiction. I have to let it and stuff just to slowly quit. You're one of the main reasons. Okay, I'm sorry. But yeah, it can be addictive. I mean, like for me, eating health, like I am addicted to, I've been like, I guess, lucky enough that I have been able to, I guess, remain sexy, at least in some people's eyes, while eating like shit my whole life. And now it's very hard for me to break that cycle. The bag of gold chips at 2 a.m. when I'm high on an edible is so appealing and I cannot stop. Now, that's on me. I'm not going to go around and be like, well, junk food shouldn't exist. Like, no, it's not anybody else's fault but mine. I kind of hate saying this because I think it's a term and opinion that gets used incorrectly too much, but it seems to me like people projecting their own, if not insecurities, then personal opinions onto others in a way that's selfish, hiding personal dislikes behind a veil of righteousness. I agree with this. And you do see that a lot of these anti-porn advocates talk about having an issue with porn themselves. And it's like, I don't get why some people can't think past themselves. Like, just because you experience porn this way does not mean everybody does. And I want to do other streams. I'm going to do other videos going through the positive, negative impacts of porn. Some of the myths. Does it actually lead to desensitization? Does it actually lead to an increase in violence? Because it doesn't, at least not according to the data, but people just spew this stuff out. And the religious anti-porn advocates who have moral oppositions to porn are loving it. And this new manosphere crowd, they don't have a religious necessarily opposition to it, but they have an opposition to it because they think it's indicative, especially with the onset of OnlyFans and women being able to make money and profit off of this. That really bothers them too, because they feel like they're not doing well in this department. They feel like their whole goal in life is to try to stop being a simp, because that's what Andrew Tate is saying that you're being. And so they hate the women that are making it, and they have a moral opposition to it because of that. They're like, no, these women have taken over and we need to stop, blah, 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 blah. So I think that's where it comes from for them. Do you think it's not recognized yet because it's of the internet? Porn wasn't as easily accessible as it is now because of the internet. Maybe there's going to be a huge new wave of people who have this addiction. Well, it's not new, and a lot of research has actually been put into it, but it's hard because all you can really do is hook people up to whatever to see their brain activity, which studies have been doing, and go by self-reporting. So I don't know. I mean, it's possible things will change as time goes on, but since the internet, people have been like, oh, we have the internet now, let's put porn on it. I mean, obviously porn sells, people want to look at porn. It's not going anywhere. The vast majority of men consume porn, and women consume porn too. It's not anything new. Oh, my back? Did all the comments go away? Shit. God said no. I don't know what happened. Wait, if my moderator can still see the comments, because I can't see them anymore, if you can put them on. Okay, let me see what he's saying. Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened. I can still see them. I thought, okay, perfect. Because I know there was a lot of comments. So obviously just don't throw up if somebody is just like, fuck you. But otherwise, I want to see everything. That makes sense. Changing one's addiction for something else isn't changing anything. It's just one thing for another. Not drinking, then gambling. But then gambling isn't fixing the problem. It's just changing the needs of the problem. That's true. Next comment. So this is the part of the industries involved in sex work, including porn avoid. For the customer, all sex work is a temporary solution to an often permanent problem. It's completely win-lose business, a paid delusion that the customer is achieving something they aren't able to. No, I don't think that's the case. I don't think customers that are buying porn, or I guess using porn, all are doing so under false pretense. A lot of people understand that they're being sold a stimulus, a physical stimulus that's going to make them feel good, and then they go on with their lives. They're not doing it because they have a problem, or they're looking. I guess the problem is they're horny. Is eating a solution to your problem that you're hungry? Like, I mean, I don't understand this logic. Okay, next one. It should be in the same category as online gambling. Some people spend loads of money on porn, not me though. But it's not in the same category as online gambling because the science has not backed up that claim. It's different. Addiction changes your brain chemistry. Porn doesn't. Exactly. It's just someone trying to monetize morality. I'm sure these comments like made sense when I was talking, but now they're like so behind. Would porn addiction different than sex addiction? So sex addiction is kind of what I was talking about. It's a compulsion. Sex addiction is not recognized either. So yeah, kind of. And then they created that whatever sexual behavior disorder, whatever, as a compulsion, not an addiction, and that embodies sex addiction and porn addiction. Next comment. Regardless of whether it's an addiction or not, it's not the woman's fault or anyone but their own. True. Now, I do think that if there was something like with the opiate crisis, for instance, where doctors do need to be more careful about how they administer these drugs, because some people do get addicted. But even that, I wouldn't be like, oh no, nobody can have painkillers anymore. So there are things that need to there are things that we need to maybe proceed with caution. But I'm not even seeing like the numbers I'm seeing of even men who self-identify, like anybody can like half of you guys in here self-identify as having an addiction with porn. I mean, a problem. And it's still not very high. Like on any, like when you actually look at general population and not people that are stuck in the online bubble, most people like, they're just like, yeah, I watch porn and no, I don't think I have a problem. So interesting. Next comment. My father had a drug problem, stopped doing drugs, but started drinking. Stopped drinking, then started smoking weed. Now he's back into prostitution and crack. All these things are vastly distant, but the bottom line was probably always still there. Yeah, so these are people who usually have an underlying mental health condition or that maybe predisposes them to having addictions and or compulsions. And people just have like, all of us engage with our vices. Now, some of us can do so in a way that's not destructive to our lives and some of us don't. But what's really interesting to me is this moral aspect of it. How many young men have been duped into thinking they're addicted to porn because they like fucking titties and the church or whoever is telling them that something's wrong with them? How many men watch porn completely normal and they're in cultures or societies where it's taboo and they think that they are sick freaks for it? I'm sure some of you, if you come from a religious background, you probably know what I'm talking about, where you are just like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? This is so bad. This is so immoral. And now you think you have a problem. Next comment. Honestly, repeating that the basis from porn being addiction is best tenuous isn't helping anything. It doesn't ruin lives. It isn't a bad thing to watch. It's advice for tons of people. People aren't honest about it because it's extremely profitable business. Repeating that. Wait, I don't understand which way this comment's going. Repeating that the basis doesn't realize it's a bad thing to watch this advice. People aren't honest about it because it's extremely profitable business. So what are you saying? Maybe I'm just not. Maybe this was like an older comment that made sense in that context. I should have just gone through the comments during. I like that format better. I'm going to do that in the future. I would say it's part of human nature to try to blame one's own feelings on something / someone / something else. True, but I think with porn and sex, I think there's multiple layers to it, and they do it in a way that I think isn't done in other, like, how many people are trying to stop casinos from being open? Like, how many people are online and on, like, just, and a lot of times the victims of this kind of rhetoric are porn stars and women, and they're considered like the least and the most, they're doing something so wrong and terrible. And that's kind of when I talk about the morality aspect of it, religion, objective morality, subjective morality, all of that. But then when I do a video like that and so many men come back at me with, no, what you're doing is wrong because I have a problem with what you're doing because I have a problem consuming it. That's something I think that's unique to this. All right, next. Cool. Do you have a study that wasn't done involving strongly religious people that's skewing it? No. This study was done on thousands of people. Some of them were religious, some of them weren't. That's the whole point, is they had people that were religious and people that weren't religious, and they compared the two groups. And they weren't all of them that had a moral opposition to it. It wasn't necessarily a religious moral opposition to it. I don't have a current study that's using like incels and Andrew Tate fans, because I think they don't have necessarily a religious opposition to it. They have a matrix opposition to it, or whatever you want to call it. I think it would be the same thing. And obviously this group also does suffer from loneliness, social isolation, anxiety. A lot of them are depressed, etc. And obviously that's going to feed into it. Next. Like most things in life, your personal worldview will color your view on porn and sex. I agree. Next. Americans have a very, yes, especially compared to other more developed countries. I mean, people in Europe are like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? I'm like, I don't know. We still have a very strong Bible Belt intact. Actually, I think prohibition is an excellent, yeah, I agree. How did that work out? So a lot of people that want to ban porn, or they're trying to, and that's the thing, them getting online telling men to stop supporting OnlyFans and you're a simp if you support OnlyFans. OnlyFans is a booming business. I make more and more money each month. It's not going to work. You just need to address the underlying issues you have. You're not going to stop you, and that's the thing, you're projecting. You're the one subscribing to my OnlyFans, and if you don't feel like that's good for you, I hope that you stop doing it and you do what you think is best for your life. But going online and just spreading hate and negativity and misinformation about this industry is detrimental and it's not helping you. So that's why I'm talking about it. Next. I lived in Germany for 2 years. They drank wine and beer all the time. They have always smoked cigarettes. They had brothels everywhere. I had 3 brothels within 5 miles from my home, and nobody had an issue. They were all happy. It's just here we think that way. I agree. I think this is telling. I'm a Christian, so my religion is a sin. I feel like I'm going to go to hell for continuing to watch it. Now I have no problem with the other stuff, though. That's kind of wrong. Wait, what do you mean? Now I have no problem with what's the other stuff? Maybe you clarified later. I'm trying to catch up. Okay, next. I'm an alcoholic. Definitely don't think it should be prohibited. All drugs need to be legalized. Yeah. And I'm not saying all people that have an issue with porn would support banning porn, like legislation to ban porn. But a lot of them act like this is something that nobody should consume. And they're like, stay strong, brothers. I see that under my posts all the time. I was so confused. They're like, brothers, stay strong. Like, as if like, it's like, no, you should stay strong. Yeah. Because you don't want to be here. And if you don't want to be here, I'm sorry that you can't stop yourself from being here. But plenty of people are living normal with normal working jobs. I told you, I have so many couples that subscribe to my shit together and they enjoy watching my stuff together. Or I have men. I have another really one of my favorite subscribers who is like, hey, like, I just have a higher sex drive than my wife. And she's like, oh, you should check out OnlyFans. And she found you on Reddit. And she's like, oh, she's really hot. You should talk to her. Like, and these are just like normal everyday men. They don't know like, oh, stay strong. Like, I'm being attacked by your titties. Like, so next. Nope, I'm Hazard my best friend. I'm experiencing a higher level of satisfaction with what and how I consume now. First time ever. Started at the same time I began subbing to independent creators. Personal connection. Yeah, personal connection turns me on in certain ways too. Yeah, so I do see a small number of, it's not a big number, but I do see a small number of men who really get turned on by the personal connection. And it's actually not that small now that I'm actually thinking about it. It's just a small number of men who constantly are engaging with it. But so many men, I mean, Hazard Stand, if you're on my OnlyFans and you go to my live streams, my live streams get the most purchases out of all the content that I put out. And a lot of men message me and they're like, oh, I just like hearing you talk, or, oh, it was so cool to hear your opinion on things, or whatever. It turns men on more when they feel like they have a connection with somebody. And that's not unhealthy. Can it get unhealthy? It can. There are certain people who have issues and they're like, they get like starstruck and they have like, they become, I was about to say lover boy. That's not the lover boy method. It's just on my head, my mind, because of the Tate stuff. But I think this is very true. And if you have a moral opposition to porn industry, which anti-porn advocates are like, oh, well, you don't know if the women are consenting and they're all exploited and they're all whatever. Okay, fine. Start supporting independent creators like me that I don't have any of those issues. Like I said, I mean, if you know my story, I'm a lawyer, don't have daddy issues, not doing this and I choose to be here and I enjoy making the content. So you can't really use that excuse with me. Next comment. Healthy and normalized porn viewing can be beneficial in helping people discover their sexual preferences and kinks, as well as be a tool for connecting with partners and exploring the physical side. Yes, so this is one of the positives of porn. I'm not saying there have been no studies correlating anything negative with porn, but there also are things like this that are very positive that come out of porn, especially I've read in the for the LGBTQ community who don't get as much representation. For them, like, they're like, oh, they want to see porn that involves trans people or whatever, and they will feel like things are normal and their desires and their needs and their wants are normal when they don't feel that way by looking at general society. Next. Hey, buddy, you're not going to hell. If God is love, then you're not going to go to hell just because you're being a human with human urges. Don't shame yourself for being who you are, and don't shame others for being themselves. You can break yourself free from. If you guys are following Hazard Stint on TikTok, it's gas station therapy. If he can put it in the thing and we can pin it, if you're somebody who is struggling with, or you're somebody who, his story, he talks about it on his TikTok, but he grew up as in a fundamentalist Christian community, and now he's an atheist, and he's working through all that. He's very similar to me. If you like my content and how I break things down, he does that too. And he's a really good resource. And like, he's created a little community over there for people that are trying to, I guess, come out of religion and some of the shame and issues like this that they were plagued with growing up. Next comment. Reminds me of Born singing from God's perspective. If God exists, got better things to do than go through your search history. Yeah. I've never been able to square that. There's a whole argument on if there's a God, but then there's a second layer. Like, does he care if you're masturbating? Probably not, but what do I know? Next. Porn hurts women. Men don't want to invest into maintaining a relationship and having a girlfriend because it takes work. People are having less sex nowadays. Have you seen that data? Do you think that's a good thing? So that data isn't because, and this is the thing. So something that's happening doesn't necessarily mean the cause is what you think it is. I think this is easily shown by the fact that if you ask people, do they want to have sex? If you want to ask these men that aren't having sex, do you want to have sex? Like, do you think if you were to survey college, these incels, even college, middle age, all these men that are really struggling, whatever, do you think they're saying they don't want to have sex? No, they all want to have sex. They have other issues. So younger people are struggling a lot financially, economically. It's not like the old days where people could, graduate college and buy their first house right away. People are struggling in all those ways. And then also, we talked about this in an old stream too, the rise of lonely single men, that the dating market has changed and women are looking for different things. With women getting financial independence, they're not looking to men for financial security anymore, and they're looking for different things. They're more selective, they're pickier. So there's a lot of men that want to have sex that aren't able to, and I agree with that, which is why we have this problem. But that's not because of porn. I don't think like men are watching porn, they're like, oh, okay, I don't even want to have real sex now. I'm good. Never need real sex again. I don't think porn is doing that. If you do believe that, then I would like to see some data to back that up, because you're right. People, especially men, are having less sex these days, but to think that is because they're watching porn and they just aren't interested in women and they aren't interested in sex. If that was the case, we wouldn't have this big community, and we wouldn't have people like Andrew Tate, who are literally famous because they're lying to you, trying to teach you how to have sex with women or how to get women to want to have sex with you. Andrew Tate could just be like, oh, just go watch porn instead, and he wouldn't be the famous person that he is, because these men are craving intimacy. They are craving relationships. They do want sex. They just don't know how to get it. And that is why we have this problem. Next. So porn has nothing to do with it. Interesting. There's no reason to believe porn has. I'm looking at a comment he just wrote. Now you don't have to put that one up because I want to keep going in order. But he said that so porn has nothing to do with it. Interesting. That's what happens. It's called post-nut clarity. Post-nut clarity doesn't now make you. Why is there a whole community of men that is very upset about the fact they don't get women? And why are men so disillusioned and disenfranchised by not being able to have real sex and real women and real relationships if they have more access to porn than ever? That should solve the problem, according to your own logic. All right, next. Right? If God is perfect, ultimate in every perfect and ultimate way, then he, it, she, they is love. Then it's a perfect love that forgives everything. I was a professing Christian for 35 years. I have no guilt leaving that awful judgment BS behind. Like I said, check him out. Gas Station Therapy on TikTok. If he writes it, if we could have the moderator pin it somehow. I don't know how to do this. All right. Yes. Deconstructing Christianity, atheist, humanist discussions on TikTok, Gas Station Therapy. You guys should check it out if you're interested in kind of like the stuff I talk about. Next. Because people should, instead of watching porn, have sex in their real life, but since they can just watch porn anywhere on their phone, on their sofa, eating potatoes, they're less inclined to go out in public. Where are you getting that? Where is that just in your head? Is this happening to you? Are you not wanting a girl? Because a lot of men are trying to fuck. and they're very frustrated that bitches don't want to fuck them. That is the problem we're having. We're having a huge issue of young men. We're not having a problem of young men being uninterested in women. I have not seen anything to reflect that. Next. Isn't it better that people now don't need to get into relationships just because of sex? Yeah, that's another problem. People used to fucking get married. People used to make lifelong commitments to people that they didn't even really know if it would be good for them long term just to fuck. This is before the onset of birth control and a lot of other things, and kind of the sexual revolution, which some argue is a negative. Conservatives argue it's a negative for women and for men. The online manosphere argues that it's a win for women. It's not good for men. And that is why you see a lot of them kind of idolizing more repressive religions like Islam. Andrew Tate converted to Islam, for instance, because in these cultures, you don't need to be a good, decent, whatever man to get a woman. You kind of get a woman by default just by being a man. And that's very attractive to these people because they're like, oh yeah, women can't sleep around and they have to be with one man and get married. And that's kind of what these people advocate for now. Next. Hello, first time chatting here. I've unfollowed all women that post lewd, explicit photos and also put porn blockers on my phone. PC doing good so far, but what should I do something else to help? I am not the expert on this. I'm not somebody that has had to overcome this. I'm sure there's lots of great resources for you online. Finding other things that you can do. I know some people, they like, for instance, especially for children, they talk about making sure all screens are like in public space, like, you know, in the living room with your family or whatever, so that you can kind of just, and once the way life works and our brains work and habits work is it becomes easier and easier and easier the longer you can maintain the habit of not watching it. So, but I'm not the person to ask for specific advice on how to stop. I struggle with being disciplined at pretty much anything. So next. Many of us aren't sitting on the couch eating potato chips and browsing porn. We get legit hobbies, and I enjoy the same way I enjoy. Exactly. I don't understand why this is really hard for some men to understand that. Okay, I'm going to compare it to me and getting off. And I do it as a job too. So it's kind of, so sometimes like I have I'm horny, let me film it. But before that, I'd be watching a movie. It's the end of the day. I did all my shit and I'm horny. I fuck myself. Now I feel better. And now I go on with my life. You know, I'm not just like sitting on the couch, unable to like do my homework or graduate law school or whatever, because I'm so horny and I need to, you know? So again, let's be careful about using your experience and thinking it applies to everyone. It's not all about you. Not everybody is you. And that is why it's important to look at empirical data and actual evidence and studies than to just focus on ourselves, right? Okay, next. Well, you should try wearing a rain jacket more often, because even if it was raining titties doesn't mean you should try to catch each one. Love that. Next. There is no more developed country than America. We have the biggest houses, most wealth on average, as well as the greatest. I said more developed countries like America. So I was just talking about the West in general. So if you compare us to other Western countries like Europe, and actually their report, like if you go to Scandinavia, they are happier than we are, at least by self-reports. They report being far more happier, and actually their quality of life has surpassed the quality of life in America when you look. But again, you don't seem like somebody who cares about data. If you mean Europe has better public transportation, yeah, but we as citizens have more cars, which is arguably a better method of transport, but I prefer the trams in Europe. Okay, thank you for sharing your preferences. But the point is, our goal as human beings, I think, should be overall happiness and well-being. And a lot of those countries do rank higher in happiness and well-being than we do. But I wasn't even trying to say one's better than the other. I was just saying their culture, like versus our culture, like one of the commenters was talking about Germany versus here. We have very different attitudes towards sex. And it's not like they're in, you know, where my family is from, Iran, where they are a third world country. That's what I'm talking about. Next. Another way to say that is McDonald's and Starbucks learn how to be successful by being readily accessible and available. You're going to see it everywhere. Adapt to the environment you're in, rather than act like you're oppressed by humans doing what humans do. That's my viewpoint anyway. It is mine too. Everything, a lot of advertising in general, like just our whole capitalist society. If anything, you should rage against capitalism if this is your problem, because they literally, how they run is by profiting off of your natural human desires, needs, wants, etc. And a lot of times making you consume things you don't need, or buy things you don't need. That's very true. But I would argue sex is one of the things you do actually need. You don't need the 1727 cars, but you do need to nut. And if you can make that experience more pleasurable without it being detrimental to your life, why the fuck not? Next. Most of the interviews of porn stars I've watched, they seem more wholesome, kind, and level-headed than most YouTubers. Well, that's good insight. You can think something is unhealthy or even wrong without thinking it should be banned. That's a big libertarian, classical liberal thing. Example, I think drugs are bad and destroy tons of people. Absolutely. Yeah, you're like me. I'm very libertarian left, especially when it comes to so libertarian left people, we are more conservative on economics. Like, we do think the government like needs to come in and make sure that, you know, these, I mean, they could, I feel like they're not doing shit, but they should be coming in and you know, regulating, making sure that you know, minimum wage, there's no trying to minimize exploitation of workers, etc. That is where they should come in. But when it comes to social issues and people living their own lives and having the freedom to do and consume what they want, as long as it's not hurting others, I completely agree with that. But it's not that I don't even think a lot of the people that have an issue with it think it should be banned, but I am seeing that more and more and more. And that is scary, that so many young or disillusioned, disenfranchised men think that all their problems would go away if girls could stop making money on OnlyFans. Next. Am I getting closer? So earlier today, a male OF dude who said he makes $700,000 annually tweeted, "Bruh, compared to most jobs, this job is easy as fuck. Can't believe people really complain." I'm not saying you're complaining. I don't want to support people making six figures for 90 minutes of work a week. The current step of hyper individualism. Why shouldn't I want people to truly affect the world around them with their careers? Not greedy, jealous, ashamed. I know my sexuality. To me, it's more shitty capitalism. So that's fine. If you don't want to support that, you don't have to support that. But you can't say that it's not making like when you say, why wouldn't I want to support people who are truly affecting the world around them? Porn stars or sex workers actually, and I want to do future videos on this, have actually had many positive impacts on society. Actually, it has a cathartic effect for a lot of men. And a lot of people do get a benefit out of engaging with sex workers or consuming porn or etc. So just because you don't think it's making a positive impact, again, it depends on your morals. If you think that what we should be protecting as a society is sexual purity and the family unit, then yeah, you think this is destructive and destroying lives. But you can't sit here and be like, this is not making a positive impact on society, because it's not making a positive impact on you, and because you're mad that people are making way too much money. I mean, I think athletes make obscene amounts of money, but if I like sports, I'm still going to watch sports. But you have complete right to not want to watch or do something because you think they're not working hard enough for their money. No, I'm not going to say that OnlyFans is like the most labor intensive, difficult job. And we do, some of us, and I also want to be clear that it's some of us. I'm in the camp where I am very lucky and privileged to be doing well as I'm doing on that platform. But there are plenty of girls. In fact, the average OnlyFans girl makes like $200 a month. So it's not that everybody just takes off their clothes and they become a star. This man is doing extremely well. I'm doing extremely well. That is not representative of everyone. And it's kind of like you said, it's capitalism. There are people who make crazy amounts of money. It's not a meritocracy. It's not that the people that work hardest are making the most money in our society. And that's just a reflection of society. It's not specific to this industry. So if you want to go and try to make sure you're only spending money in industries where it's not going to go to the top, where people are working the least and making the most, then you can try to do that. Next. Interesting point, and I def agree to a point. Jazz actually one of the lower sub price on OF period. $21 for 6 months to sub is one option. Tons of free content on Reddit, free Twitch and YouTube, intellectual, informative content that's affordable even if you're on food stamps. Yeah, I keep my price low for that reason. I sell my more exclusive, longer content for like if it's like a 10-minute video, I'm going to sell it for what I think it's worth. But I want as many people to have access to my page and to be able to message me. I answer all my messages Now, that doesn't mean I have time to like, sit there and talk about your day with you forever, but I run my page in a way that I think it's ethical and I think it's worth the price. Now, if you don't think it's worth the price, that's fine. And people start telling me all the time, oh my God, you're selling your pussy pics for like $6. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm making really good money off doing it because a lot of people are paying that $6. And so it's not breaking the bank for them, but then I still get to make that money because I have enough people that are willing to pay that. That's kind of how I think of it. Next. Responding to what as just responding to, okay, Clifforus, I don't know if that's how you say his username, seems like is a very privileged position. I remember hearing an interview with Dave Navarro, guitarist from Jane's Addiction, where I don't know what that is, where he was asked about porn and he said, well, if I'm hungry, I'll just eat a sandwich. I'm not going to watch someone else eat a sandwich. Yeah, some people can just have sex, but that's not always an option. And it's not even like, okay, let me tell you something. I know men who can get any bitch they want. I know men who can just DM any girl they want on Instagram and they have all the money, they're attractive, they still watch porn. Sometimes you're just not in the mood. It's like fucking, you just had a long day at work. You don't want to talk to someone. You don't want to entertain somebody. You just want to watch porn. It's different. Now, is that a replacement for sex? No, but sometimes you're not in the mood. Like, it's not like only losers who can't get women watch sex. Most men watch sex, and men who can have a lot of sex and do have a lot of sex watch it too. And a lot of those men don't have an issue with paying for it. I talked about this in that video too. I was like the second category I talked about. There's a lot of subscribers on OnlyFans that are just fucking, they have high libido. They're very attractive. Like, they'll send me pictures and I'm like, oh, and they're just fucking freaky and they just want to get their freak on and they're fucking people. They're sometimes sending me videos of them like, oh, and they've consented and everything. And they're like, they do have a couples page that they made together and they're sending me like them fucking and they're, we're all like watching porn each other together. It's weird. Okay. I mean, not weird, but it's not just this one scenario where this guy is on the couch eating potato chips, chronically depressed, who wouldn't be this way if he just stopped watching porn. Okay. Next. Yeah, I agree. You don't have to support anyone for anything. Arguably, there are more hardworking people who do other important jobs while being paid close to nothing. Yes, capitalism. Yes, it's true. But what's interesting is a lot of the people who love capitalism and these like conservatives who love capitalism and capitalism is like their baby, they all of a sudden have an issue with how much money certain porn stars, etc., are making. No, I don't think in America people are getting their fair wages at all. I think there are people that work extremely hard that are barely getting by. And I think there are people who actually are making tons of money by exploiting other people, such as Andrew Tate or CEOs of major corporations. At least for us, I can say that I'm not exploiting anybody by making this kind of money. Like, I have my moderator and maybe a couple other people that I think I treat very well, that kind of help me with things. But I'm not making people bust their ass, wake up at 5 a.m., go, work in a factory with terrible conditions and paying them barely anything, or going off to, sweatshop in China. Hold on. All right. My moderator confirmed that he does not feel exploited. All right. Next comment. Thanks for reading, but the price point being so low combined with the huge amount of subscribers doesn't make it okay to me. So yeah, so you're saying it's not about jealousy or whatever, but like if somebody was selling, I don't know, pencils for $2 and a lot of people like these pencils and a lot of people bought these pencils and this person became rich off of selling you these pencils, you don't like that person. That person shouldn't profit because too many people are buying it. Like, I don't know if you're just like a hardcore communist, which I don't not respect, if you're a Marxist or what, but where is the line? Like, I'm curious as to whether you have this issue uniquely with porn and sex work, because a lot of the time I see this, but these people do not apply it to other industries. It's like, oh no, you can't make that much off selling your body. That's the problem. Even if you're selling it for a low price point, which I get shitted on for all the time also, so you can't win. But too many people are subscribing. Too many men are paying $5 or $6, $7 to subscribe to your OnlyFans page. And that pisses me off because now you're making too much money for my liking. So I don't want to buy. Go, okay, fine. But the fact that you don't think it's okay is kind of interesting. All right, next. But that money comes from tons of people willingly giving it. Are you saying that people shouldn't be allowed to spend their money in the way they want? Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. Like if I was like a monopoly, like if I was Apple and I was knocking down competition, or like these major corporations that are doing a lot and we're not enforcing anti-trade laws, and I was shutting down small, like whatever, I think you have a point here. But I am literally a girl in my room who decided to share my boobs online, and you can see thousands of pieces of media. I post every single day, and if I miss a day, I post double the next day. So I try to post twice on days that I don't have a full-length video, and then I post once a day on the days that do, and I go live once a week. I'm actually going to go live there tonight. That'll be a sexy live. And that is all for $6 or $6.99, $7 a month. Or like Hazards and Snake, you can get like 6 months for $21. And you're telling me that because too many people find that appealing and they choose to spend their money that way, that it's not okay. Okay. You're free to think that. Next. Does porn affect people in becoming polyamorous? Like if you watch porn, are you more likely to become poly? I haven't seen any research to indicate that. We are becoming more poly as a society in general because our views on sex, marriage, the family unit, relationships is shifting, I think, for the better. But I don't know if porn necessarily is related to that. I don't know though. I'm just guessing. Next. Do you use psychological tactics to get people addicted to your content? Do I use psychological tactics? Not consciously, but I think we're trying to sell, we're trying to advertise, like any industry is trying to get you to consume their product or service. So when you say psychological tactics, like go deeper, like am I trying to trick people into it? Like no, but am I trying to make it seem very appealing? Like, oh, I'm posting my boobs on Reddit. If you like my boobs and you want to see more boobs, come to my OnlyFans. If that's a psychological tactic, then sure. Next. Oh, I have absolutely been in the space of texting someone who wanted me to come over to have sex, but I just didn't want to take the time to do that. But that same night I watched porn and got myself off, and it was completely fine to me. Yeah. Some days you're not in the mood. But there are very few men who have like an abundance of women available to have sex with, and they're refusing all of them all the time just to watch porn and eat potato chips. I don't think this is a problem. I think the problem is a lot of men who don't have those options and have other underlying issues are sitting on their thing eating potato chips, watching porn, and then they think that, oh, well, now this is making everybody not want to have sex. No, it's just certain men can't. Next. And men who can and can't both consume porn. Capitalism is a system that allows the maximum amount of personal freedom. So yeah, I don't want to get into like capitalism versus other systems, but I just wanted to talk to that guy specifically who just thinks it's wrong that one person can make money. Now, I agree that like people shouldn't make like I don't think there should be trillionaires. You know, I do think there should be a limit, or that like trillionaires should be taxed like crazy. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty taxed, but like, you know what I'm saying? But I don't think that people just making good money because they're selling a product or a service that people enjoy makes it wrong. Next. I disagree. How many workers in the world can decide what they want, what they do in work? Do they decide how many hours, how much they are paid, etc.? Yeah, exactly. Next. Oh my God, am I almost at the bottom? Honestly, being sultry and sexy in general is a pretty psychological tactic, and that's been a thing for as long as humans have been fucking. And I guess I'm using psychological tactics to lure in these addicted men. Did we miss any? I feel like there's some that we might have missed. Let me see. Let me go up now. Oh no, we got them. Be respectful, no need to shame folks who are happy. Yeah, and this is a thing, and I do want to be cognizant of people who feel people who may, I'm not trying to devalue, like, or what's the word? There's such a word. What's the word? I'm not trying to, your problems or people that are struggling are really struggling and they're valid, but at the same time we need to strike a balance between supporting those people and recognizing their experiences as being valid, while at the same time still making sure that we point out misinformation that they're spreading, and also if they're spreading hate or negativity towards other people in an unwarranted manner, that doesn't excuse their behavior just because they are struggling. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. Disenfranchise. My water to disenfranchise. I don't even remember the sentence I was using now, if that was the right word. But yeah, I think you guys get what I'm saying. Okay, sorry. I don't want to click. Okay, perfect. Oh, I don't think giving people a product/service they want is wrong. I think there should be a lower threshold than $1 trillion. I 100% know it'll never happen, but I think there should be a maximum wage in any industry. Many business models, including low price point for much more volume, shouldn't make that possible. So that guy was making 700,000. You think nobody should be making that? Okay, you know what? I'm not like, if you want to sit there and talk about, communism versus, which is kind of like what you're saying, socialism, or you're not, I guess, completely advocating. But when you're saying that even the threshold should be 700,000 and nobody should make more than that, that is quite extreme. And also, if you're trying to actually turn it into a meritocracy and be like, well, you deserve 700,000 because you're working hard, but this person isn't working hard, and who gets to decide, and who gets to decide if what they're contributing to society? We have to think about what's also practical. You can't create societies and you can't structure societies over yourself and your feelings. And this is very hard for people to understand, which is why the libertarian take is so, like, in my opinion, like, just a no-brainer, because it's like, if it's not about you, you are, like, as a consumer, you're totally free. You don't have to support it. But for you to say it's wrong because they're not contributing to society and making that a blanket statement instead of saying, I don't feel like they're contributing to me, please be able to separate the two. Let's see. Puerto Rico, next comment. So I saw a while back that even as a sports fan, I thought it was crazy. Steph Curry makes enough money a year to pay the entire WNBA roster. Still have 10 million a year to himself. It's nuts. Yeah, and some people would argue, like, compared to the WNBA, they're making in more money. More people are tuned in, so they should be able to make that income. According to Vernick, or whatever his name is, he doesn't think that because they're not working harder than WNBA players, right? I don't know. Okay, next. Literally all of them who live in a free market capitalist society. That's the point. It's all about how much they're willing to sacrifice to utilize that ability. Now, I don't think that the people at the top of capitalism are people who work their way to the top necessarily. I'm not somebody that agrees with that. And the people that are working like 5 jobs, the hardest workers, they deserve to make less money. No. But I also think that is just a natural feature or bug, I guess, of capitalism. But it's interesting that so many people have a problem with women doing it in OnlyFans, but nobody really has an issue. At least I don't see a whole male-dominated online community upset that Steph Curry is making a lot of money off not working harder than WNBA players. Next. The best free market is where everything that you need for basic survival is free. I don't disagree. Next. I have to go live on OnlyFans in 16 minutes. Okay, next. Is that the end? Are you economically conservative? So economically conservative means that I believe in the free hand of the market. No, I think that when it comes to that, I do believe that there should be regulations in place to, hold on, my moderator. Most of the end is just chatter, not many constructive comments. Okay, I'm actually pretty close now to the bottom, so I'm just going to go through and pick what seems interesting to me for the next 15 minutes. Are you capitalist, basically? My personal, like, I like a social, like a what do I say? I don't know what the thing is. I like to take the best elements that I'm not a socialist completely. I'm like a democratic socialist, or what do they call it? Not, is it a democratic socialist? Why am I blanking on this? But I would say, I mean, if you watch a lot of like the libertarian left pundits, gurus, whatever, like political gurus, pundits, I align with a lot of their values, but I'm socially completely libertarian. But when it comes to economics, I don't believe that the free hand of the market will be enough to prevent exploitation and consume. Like, I am very happy that the FTC just proposed a ban on non-compete clauses. I think that is an excellent place for the government to come in and be like, you cannot tell your service industry, you know, food worker, like waitresses, that they cannot go get another job within 20 miles for the next 15 years if they decide to leave. That is what can happen when we don't have regulations in place to prevent worker exploitation in this way. And so, or I guess mistreatment of workers. So no, I'm very pro the government coming in and being like, nope, you can't have non-compete clauses like this, because I've seen so many people who have been like, like the girl who does my lashes, my facials, like a lot of them, they're stuck in these companies and they can't leave because they're in these non-compete clauses where it's like, you can't work like, it's like you went to school or you trained to do lashes and you can't leave your job where your boss is mistreating you because you signed a contract that said that you can't do lashes for 3. Like, what the fuck else are you going to do? So that's my take on that. Okay. Okay. Sorry for the clicks. I'm just going to scroll. Socialism isn't a bad word. I never said. Jesus, John, knows a lot of assumptions about what else you think I believe. Maybe I did make some assumptions, but you're also maybe not explaining what you believe best, because after that, all you just said is socialism isn't a bad word. I agree. Farsi Baladi, yes. Would you be mad if a fan wanted to watch your leaked OF stuff for free? You guys, I have 4 companies scanning the internet for leaked OF content, and the stuff that you guys see is so minimal, and I leave it up there for a reason. I'm a lawyer, if you guys don't understand. I get subscribers out of that. I have a whole Reddit page where I specifically post my own nudes that I also post on OnlyFans. I post way more on OnlyFans, but I also post them on Reddit so that people watch them for free, and that is how they subscribe. I am a pretty successful OnlyFans creator, and I post my titties for free on the internet every single day, and I'm still that successful. I know what I'm doing. So no, I would not be mad if somebody went and found 4 videos. A lot of the leak stuff also that I leave up is from 2021, where I was 25 pounds skinnier. I don't even look like that anymore. I don't care if people see that. If anything, I would just want people not to see it because I'm like, oh, I don't look like that anymore. My good shit, that shit is under lock. Wages are basically, so when you guys go on Google and you search something, but the best place to go for leaked content is my own Reddit page. You're going to see way more stuff than if you search and then you go to the bottom and it's like Google has removed 3 million searches and I've left like 5. Yeah, that there's a reason for that. Wages are based on supply and demand, just like anything else in a free market. It would be great if a garbage man made the same wage as a nuclear physicist, but more people are able to be garbage men than nuclear physicists, even though there is a strong argument that garbage men are more important. I agree. I don't think life, okay, to a certain degree, life is just not fair. And this is hard for some people to cope with. And it's even hard for me to cope with. I don't know why some billionaire's son is on a yacht right now, fucking like a bunch of bitches, and there is a child that's being beaten by their alcoholic father. I don't know why that's the case. And yeah, there's some times where people can profit off things that they didn't earn. I earned a law degree and I am profiting off of something that I didn't necessarily earn, which is my physical appearance. That's just life. And to a certain point, I don't like it either. I mean, I don't mind that, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't like, inequality is inequality and it's not warranted. Now there are things we should do to prevent. I think it's like the top 26 people in the world, I think, make as much money as the bottom 50% combined. Do I think that should be the case? No. Is that why I agree with having economic regulations to kind of prevent this? Absolutely. But we're never going to make it fair. That's just what it is. That's why privilege exists, and that's why it's important to identify your privilege. I realize that. And that is why, like, honestly, when I see hate comments, a lot of times they make me, the first emotion I feel is grateful, because it's a reminder, hey, I was born conventionally attractive. I was born smart. I was born loved. I have friends. I have a bunch of people that want to be around me. I have way too many people that want to be around me, actually. And this person doesn't have that. And that is underlying this behavior. So instead of being angry or judging them or looking at the relationship that the comment has with me, I'm looking at the relationship that comment has with the person that wrote it. And when you think about it like that, instead of reading a comment, because we're self-centered people, we read the comments like, you're ugly. You're like, oh my God, am I ugly? No, think about the relationship between a person who decided to write that to another person. And once you think about it like that, that is why the first thing I feel is like, oh my God, I'm so lucky that I don't have this anger and this hatred. And part of the reason I probably was not predisposed to having this kind of anger and hatred, that doesn't mean everybody who comes from those, I guess, conditions becomes like that, but they're more likely to, for sure. Like, I am not somebody that would ever be online spreading hate because I'm happy. And part of the reasons I'm happy are things that I did not necessarily earn. And that's that. Okay. Well, Pap is easily triggered. Okay, let me see what's going on here. Is there something more? I'm not triggered at all. Your date. My dick is in my mouth. All right, Pap, you need to relax. Yeah. Non-compete clauses are anti-free market, though, so that's necessarily an argument against I'm not making an argument against capitalism. I was making an argument against free, like, just because somebody asked me, are you economically conservative? I think people who are economically conservative are very anti-regulation. I'm not anti-regulation when it comes to economics. I'm anti-regulation when it comes to socially. I don't think the government should come in and tell you, you can't fuck this person, you can't marry that person, you can't sell your body online for money. But I think a government can come in and tell a corporation you can't have a non-compete clause in your contracts. So that's kind of what I was saying. I don't identify as a socialist, like I said. I think like certain things are done better when, like, I believe in having public healthcare. I don't like our healthcare system. I wish our healthcare system looked like Canada's and other socialist countries. In that aspect, I want that part to come into our society. I don't like big pharma, for instance. I think big pharma should be broken up. So in those ways, I guess I'm anti-capitalist, but I wouldn't even say that. What happens when OF dies and you get old? What's your pan serious question? I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys because I'm so sick of this question. With the amount of money that I'm making now and the amount of money I can probably continue to make, I don't have to worry about what I'm going to do when I get old. Unless I blow my money like an idiot, I can be retired. I'm just going to keep it real with you. So all these people that like to come on here, and I'm not like trying to get angry at you, but I also know you're being rude to my friends and I don't like that. If you are worried about what I'm going to do in 10, if it's making you feel better inside, which I think a lot of men who are upset that women are flourishing, they have this, oh no, well, you're going to be 35 and you're not going to have kids and you're not going to find love and you're going to be like a washed up porn star. No, I'm sorry, that's just not true. I make what I used to make in a month, in a year, in a month. So 1 year of doing OnlyFans is a 12-year salary of like myself as a lawyer. 2 years, that, like, let's think about this math here, you know? And I know that's not the case for everybody, but when people ask me this, I feel like sometimes I just want to be like, I'm fucking bawling, so don't worry. Don't do that often, but sometimes it just has to. Is the mod going to do anything about the obvious weirdo in the chat? If it's Pap, yeah, go ahead and mute him. The argument isn't for communism, it's for income inequality to actually should be addressed to any extent. Nobody said life should be rainbows and sunshine. Well, income inequality, what do you mean to be action? I don't get that comment. Maybe I get you're replying to somebody and I get lost in who's replying to who. So I'm trying my best. I never understand how a company cannot pay someone and then tell them they can't do something after they don't work for them anymore. Yeah. And I've just seen so many instances. I have had to review so many non-compete clauses, both in my time as a lawyer and now, trying to tell people that they can leave their abusive job and still be able to make a living and support themselves. So this free hand of the market does not prevent against abuses like this. And that is why I'm not economically conservative. All right. But even with that, inequality standards of living are the highest they've ever been by a massive margin, historically speaking, and compared to other places on Earth. Yeah, I 100% think income inequality is a fucking issue. And this is why I'm like, oh yeah, I pay a lot of taxes, but I actually don't mind at all. I mean, I wish I had more say about where my tax money was going because I don't love we don't need another fucking fighter jet. Sorry. I prefer it not to be going to them. But yeah, tax the shit out of me. Go for it. Wait, can you explain why I was rude to your friends? Please read the whole conversation and notice how I was attacked 3 times and kept it chill. You talked about someone having your dick in their mouth. I have not seen anybody else in this chat speak like that. Hey, I appreciate you being on stream. I couldn't retire now. Let's not get it twisted. I could not retire now. But when people ask me what I'm going to do when I'm old, and I can make money off of probably my sex appeal for at least the next 10 years. So I think people are talking about past 10 years. And if I am making even a fraction of what I'm making now, I don't think I'll need to be worried after 10 years. Now, this is not to say that nothing can go wrong. I can get disfigured tomorrow. I can get brain damage tomorrow. Like anything can happen. And this is not a sure thing. And that's the reality of this culture and this society. And I mean, not culture, this industry is that it's not safe, risk-free job for sure. But when people are like, they're like, oh my God, what are you going to do when you're old? Like, and you're like just alone and miserable because you didn't know. That's just not the reality. For most females, that is their reality. Glad you made it work though. Really? No. What podcast was it the other day that was like, you never see a homeless bad bitch? It's interesting because you do see that the most rich, successful, like it's kind of like the fringes of society, the most rich, successful men, I mean, people in society are men, but also like the most downtrodden, homeless, etc., are also men. So this idea that like, you know, I'm going to be on the street begging for money at 35 is not accurate. Are you an independent OF creator? Or do you have a management company? I am 100% independent. Please go to a neighborhood that's lower middle class. Good standard of living is absolutely not ubiquitous food, desserts, no opportunities. I think this is true. So before you leave, if someone has a non-compete, how strong is that really by law standards, even though it's super weird? So as of right now, it just needs to be reasonable. And the courts, depending on your state, so in California, for instance, they will not enforce those a lot of the time. But in other places, it depends. A lot of times the standard is it reasonable? Some places, like if it's like, oh, you can't work anywhere within 100 miles for 10 years. And what you do is that you cut hair. They're not going to consider that reasonable, but it depends. Now, if this proposed rule goes through, then they'll be eliminated entirely, I think, except for certain interesting. Now, it's different if you're like in like, you know, a certain company and you're sharing like trade secrets, that's different. But when it's like, and I see this mostly applied to people that are working like regular jobs in the like service industry, et cetera, aesthetics, and they get these crazy compete clauses like, oh, you can't work anywhere else, so you might as well put up here with it here. And a lot of times these contracts are signed because people need jobs, right? Like, you can't go back. Like if you get hired at a hair salon and you come back with the employment contract and you're like, I don't want to sign that part, it just doesn't happen. Proud supporter. Okay, can you kick off PAP? I think PAP needs help. Stock dividends are real cash once you get into the millions. I guess people are just second-hand concerned about you after retirement. No, this is the problem. maybe you, John, but like a lot of people have zero. Me and Hazard Stint were talking about this the other day. There are people that message me and they're like, oh, I'm just thinking about like if you were my mom or my sister. I'm just concerned. I get this all the time. I get the white knight all the time. Oh, you're actually smart. You don't have to be doing this. Like you could do something else. I'm just concerned for you. I don't want other people to judge you. Oh, I'm just concerned about your future. These men, for the most part, are not concerned. Now, I know some people are genuinely curious, and I think a couple of the people in this chat were. Now, Pap was not one of them. That's why I reacted that way, which I usually don't. App was easily triggered. This got also Twitch and wandered into the wrong track. Yeah, that's why I answered the way he did. If someone was like, hey, I'm just wondering what your plan is, in the future, I wouldn't answer that way. But he's like, hey, so what are you going to do when you're old, like and wrinkly and like nobody likes you? That's people ask that, like, I'm just curious. And you can tell who's actually curious and who's not. Okay, so I have to. Is she reading a chat on a different platform? I'm missing something. I'm probably just behind, but I am late for my OnlyFans live stream. You guys are free to join over there. My moderator was like, I'm not able to mute Pap at the moment. I apologize, but he's also making a fool of himself. This is very true. But this has been quite a, oh shit, what did I just click? Back. Okay. I do have to go get naked on OnlyFans now, which will be a very different kind of stream. But thank you for everybody who joined. If you're an OF subscriber, see you there. If not, I will be back next week. Thanks for joining. Make sure you follow me on IG and just, keep up with my shit. It's dope. Enjoy your nudity. I will. So will many others. Absolutely. I will be there. All right. Sounds good. See you guys there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you check me out. Make sure you check out Gas Station Therapy on TikTok as well.